Good morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by Get Go Cafe and Market, where Dale, they've always got the fresh food, the curbside delivery, the great service, the 6-inch subs or 7-inch subs for $4.99. Always loving Get Go. I just had me some early today.
Can you get fireworks there, Chris?
I don't know. I hope not, because I am tired of the fireworks. The 4th is over. Stop it, people. Oh, God. I don't know about you, Dale. It's been going since April, and I can't stand it.
Everybody's cooped up. They need to get out the Get-Go and get some food, not fireworks.
And you can get beer at Get-Go. Don't forget that. If you want to calm down, get some beer. Anyways, you can also go to Mike's Beer Bar for that. But anyways, Dale, let's talk about the newest news in the NFL. And we heard the NFL had planned and announced its plan. It wanted to scrap 2 of the preseason games, weeks 1 and 4. But the NFL Players Association came up with a vote saying that their vote moving forward would be to not have a preseason at all. What's been your ear to the ground, the information that you've been getting about how will this actually hold up? Will the NFL even care, or will they just trudge forward with those 2 games?
Well, that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why they haven't announced anything yet, Chris. They need to hash this out between the union and the NFL. The NFL obviously would like to play those 2 preseason games. The coaches would like 4, obviously. Yeah. The owners are looking at this differently, and they're saying, hey, we want to play at least 2. That way you get a home and away. Maybe it gives you a test run with fans in your stadiums, that kind of stuff. But the players are siding with it. Look, they haven't had practices. You're going to be coming back. If they do cut the first and the last preseason games, which is what they've talked about, it's the idea that's been floated out there, you're still going to be playing a preseason game in about 3 weeks after you return to practice, after you first start practicing. Maybe that's enough time, maybe not. So there's a lot that's got to be hashed out here between the players union and the NFL. That's why we still haven't seen anything definitive on this. It's just all these reports being floated out there. And I honestly think a lot of times these things get floated just to test it out and see what the public reaction is. What's the public say about this? If we go down to 2 games, what's everybody going to say? If we go to none, what's everybody going to say? And so they kind of get the reaction of everybody and try to go from there.
I think that makes a lot of sense. That's kind of what they did with the new proposals with the Rooney Rules. They put out one, and then they saw the reaction, and they went a different way. I agree about that sense. I also thought it was interesting when they picked the 2nd and 3rd weeks of preseason to have, not just to get the home and away games, but this gives you at least 1 more week to get ready to do that game. And though the biggest thing I thought was interesting was that if you cut off that 4th week, that gives you another week of time. And say all their trial runs with the preseason games, if they have fans at them, this would give them time to see what worked, what didn't work, and experiment. And then that way, okay, this is how we're rolling out week 1, which they cannot afford to flop for them.
Yeah, they can't screw that up. They can't have, massive lines and those kind of things outside the stadiums as they test people coming in. The idea has been floated that they may have fans sign waivers to enter the stadium, that you can't sue the league if you catch COVID. Not that I don't know how you'd be able to prove that. And I think the thing that's being overlooked now a lot, yes, the numbers are going up around the country in terms of the number of positive tests, but A, we're testing more. More people are being tested now than ever before. And B, I saw a story today that said that COVID deaths are down to, I think we had just over 200 yesterday, down from highs of 2000s in March. So we're 10% of the deaths that we were having. So even though the numbers have spiked, we're seeing fewer people actually being hospitalized and dying from this. So, I do think that's going to factor into this as well, in terms of how they bring this back and what exactly this whole thing looks like.
All right, Dale, it was the 4th of July weekend. I hope you got to get some relaxing in, maybe eat some good food. But we get a chance to watch patriotic things over the break, and it was a Saturday. Did you partake in anything, or is there anything that always gets you going for a 4th of July watch, or something that you'll watch every year?
I really enjoyed the John Adams series that they did on HBO, basically based off the John Adams book. His life from the start of the revolution, when everything when they started, kind of kicks off with the Boston Massacre and things of that nature, and then goes from there through the rest of his life. And I actually had my wife and I watched it. She hadn't seen it before. About 2 weeks ago, we watched it, and she had no idea that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died on the same day, the 4th of July, the same exact day. They were the last two signers of the Declaration of Independence. So just such a great series, great poignant, great acting in it, and just a great show.
That sounds interesting. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, and I do enjoy my historical miniseries, like we were talking about Band of Brothers back on Memorial Day. One thing I'm going to recommend to viewers, if you haven't seen it yet, and I tie this in because if you haven't heard the news, the Washington Redskins, their owner Daniel Snyder's, he's talking about changing the name of the Redskins, and one of the names that's supposedly.
Let me just say this: I live in Washington, and if you can see, my skin is very red. I've been outside quite a bit. But that's not what we're talking about here.
Not at all what we're saying here. But Daniel Snyder, one of the names that's been considered is called the Red Tails. And for those who don't know, the Red Tails references the 332nd Fighter Pilot Unit that was the first ever black pilots allowed in the U.S. Air Force to go on missions. In World War II, and I said this at on the happy hour show that we did with Dayon, but in World War II, before they came to action, they were assigned to be bomber escorts in Europe and helping the bombers go into the major cities. They went through Berlin. Before they were assigned, American bombers were being taken down. 1 out of every 3 of their bombers were being shot out of the sky. As soon as they were assigned to protect bombers, they never lost a single one. And it was a spectacular feat. If you want to watch about them, everyone might know the recent movie that was Red Tails. But personally, and I'm a guy, I love my history, I love my movies, but it missed so many marks. It missed so many poignant moments in their history, because it wasn't just that they all just came together and that was one squad. They trained in different areas, but a lot of them trained at Tuskegee, which is where they got their training, which is where they learned how to fly, and they still dealt with a lot of racism on the way. A lot of people thought they couldn't do it. If you want to watch something, watch HBO's Tuskegee Airmen. It was made, I think, back in the late 90s, but it has Lawrence Fishburne, has Cuba Gooding Jr., John Lithgow, Andre Brower, Courtney Vance, just star upon star, and they did it so well. It carries the emotion of, like, you get the feel of being with them and being part of their mission so much better than what Red Tails did. But that's something that I watched on my 4th of July, just because I always try to go with something patriotic, just to kind of go with it, unless I wanted to watch Will Smith and blow up a spaceship on Independence Day.
So Chris, Carl Reiner died last week, and his family released some photos of him hanging out with Mel Brooks in bed. And it made me start thinking about, because those two were so tied together with their comedy acts back in the 50s and 60s. It made me think, especially in this time of when we've got so much talk about racism and stuff going on, could Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks' famous movie from the early 70s, could that movie be made today?
Ooh, man, that's such a hard question. And it's something I hear people talk about for other movies. I don't know if it could. The way that it was made, I don't think it could be made. I think that they would have to make a lot of changes. But that's also who Mel Brooks was, right?
It would lose its impact if you didn't have the movie the way it is.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember the first time I showed it to my sons. I think they were probably 13 and 16, and they couldn't believe what was being said in this film. And I'm like, no, guys, really. They're making fun of racism. They're not. They're not being racist.
But a very good comparison for something that's even more recent: Tropic Thunder, a movie that talked about it. And guy played Tony Stark. I can't remember.
Robert Downey Jr.
Thank you, Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. When he played the role, he played a guy who was in blackface portraying a black person, and at the time, it was hilarious because it made fun of the whole point of blackface. It says, this is why it's stupid and it's racist to do in the first place. And it was a hilarious movie. I love Tropic Thunder, much like how my dad showed me Blazing Saddles when I was younger. And, I was like, wow, that movie's hilarious. Cleavon Little was, and Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder, very few things that man did that weren't good. But you look at Tropic Thunder, it's really funny the same way. But could you do that today? There was even like a quick social media push by people that hadn't seen the movie, Generation XP or Generation Z, Generation Z, the kids that are after the millennials. They were like, what? Robert Downey Jr. was in blackface? And it was like, and then they had no idea the context, and they were saying, oh, we have to cancel this movie. And there was an immediate pushback from millennials, Generation Xers. Excuse me, I was saying things way too fast there. But the people who saw the movie in its time was like, whoa, you don't understand the whole point is that he's making fun of and showing why people shouldn't do blackface. And I think that's the same thing with Blazing Saddles, that a lot of the stuff it did, it exposed racism. It showed how stupid it was. So I agree with you. There'd be a lot of pushback from companies and corporations and the producers to be like, hey, Mel, you got to step back here. But could Mel Brooks even be Mel Brooks in this time?
I don't think he could, and I think that's something that we're losing in this entire, whether it's the cancel culture or however you want to look at this. We should be able to laugh at ourselves. We should be able to reach a middle ground and laugh about some of these things, because instead of just completely condemning everything that happened in the past, I think you should be able to talk about it and at least have some conversation about it, instead of just completely, we got to take that down, we got to take this down, and just forget about it. I get the fact that we don't want to have racist people who were racist, like Yale, for example. Okay, that's great, but we have to be able to have a conversation about these things. And if we can't laugh about some things and poke fun at them, what are we doing?
No, I agree. I think a perfect example of someone who has trudged forward and maintained that funny is Dave Chappelle. If you have not seen any of Dave Chappelle's specials in the past year or two, he has been on fire. He's released a few of them, and he says it in the middle. Like, there was one at one point, he's like, and if you don't like my jokes, remember, people on Netflix, you clicked on my face. And he has stood the test of time. And people have told him, oh, you can't say this or you can't say that. And he's like, everyone knows I'm making fun of this. And I think that that's a really tough thing to balance, because it is dangerous, right? I mean, there's cancel culture. And then the trick is, there are the people, like everything, that ruin it, that say, oh, I'm trying to make a joke. And they're like, no, but you're being kind of malicious with it. And I think that there's that balance that's tough to strike. But I do agree with you. I think that that at least having those discussions does help moving forward. I do think that people like Dave Chappelle and comedy like Tropic Thunder and like Blazing Saddles that bring things out like that are good for our culture moving forward.